Kiersten, how concerned are you that beyond being cyber ready, we're not at all cyber ready? In fact, many private and public agencies and companies have been hacked and continue to be at risk from this.
Well, this attack is certainly concerning, and we're still in the discovery phase of understanding what has happened. But what we know is that it's far reaching. I think recently we heard somebody talk about the blast radius of this attack being far worse than anything that we've seen, a senior official from government. And as we're figuring all of this out, we have to be prepared to know that the adversary is on our networks. And while we're remediating, we also have to be operating. And that puts us in a very challenging position.
Who is best positioned to get to the bottom of this, Kiersten, and to, out the malware, as it were, if possible?
It's a great question because it's really one of the emerging themes that has come from this event, which is the fact that the answer is the public and the private sector. So the United States government, in collaboration with industry, has to do that. They have to do this together. Not one sector or the other can do it by itself. One of the things that's improved over the last few years is we see now that the private sector has actionable intelligence in cyberspace that government doesn't have, but government has the resources to bear against nation state activity. So the recovery, the response, the remediation has to be done with industry government collaboration.
Now, that said, President Trump hasn't really seemed to be very motivated by trying to get to the bottom of this. But is it possible for the country to wait until President Biden has, had his inauguration and is in office? And if so, how fast will he need to work?
Well, it's two questions. I think certainly it's the president's silence on this has been deafening. But the good news is that there are workers in the Department of Homeland Security, in the National Security Agency, the defense infrastructure within government that are working tirelessly at this, as well as industry. Industry is working with government. So we're not losing time, but it will certainly help to have leadership on this issue because cybersecurity is a priority. And the Biden administration will come in knowing that it's a priority. And if there is if there's a silver lining to all of this, it's that make no mistake that we have got to put our resources together to focus on cybersecurity for the next year and for the future as a priority for the administration.
How much have we lost by now, Kiersten? How much is at risk of getting lost before this gets under control?
It is another great question because this discovery phase is broad and we're still figuring out what has been lost, but more importantly, what's the intent? So we're classifying this in some cases as espionage, but this goes far beyond espionage because we can say that it's espionage right up until the point that malware on one of the networks gets activated and seeks to destroy our critical infrastructure. I think that is one of the most challenging pieces of any cyber attack is you don't know the intent and it can be a long-term impact. And we're still figuring all of that out.
Now, what was it that determined that it was Russia? And now that we know, presumably, that it was, what do we know about the attacker?
Well, I think we're still confirming specifically that it's this particular Russian foreign adversary, a malicious hacker known as APT-29, a group, or Cozy Bear. And typically we do this based on the tactics, the techniques, and the procedures used by the adversary. What is unique about this attack, and one of the reasons why we were not able to detect it sooner, is that the tactics, the techniques, and the procedures were different than those used by this adversary before. So we're collecting intelligence. Certainly the experts who have been studying this adversary for years, everyone seems to believe that it is this Russian hacking group. And I think as we look at this, it's important to understand how tactics can evolve and that we have to prepare for that which we haven't expected. And that's one of the key pieces to this event.
Kiersten, is there any doubt in your mind or in any of your peers or colleagues' minds that this goes beyond just being mischief, that there is actual actionable intelligence being gathered here?
I absolutely believe that it goes beyond mischief. And I think that, as we're hearing from cyber experts and others who are looking at this type of attack, there is a recklessness to this. There is a broad reaching impact. And at the same time, it's targeted critical infrastructure. It's targeted specific agencies within government that have a lot of power and a lot of impact. And that's why, as we look at this, the speculation is that this could be one of the most significant cyber attacks on our government and our infrastructure in modern history.
If those that are trying to defend the US against this type of attack are vulnerable, which we've seen they are, then what do we do next, Kiersten?
What's important right now is to recognize that no company, no sector can do this on its own. Government and industry have to work together before something like this happens. What we've talked about, it's a Department of Defense term called pre-event planning. It's how government and industry plan, how they can take actionable intelligence, connect the dots of what is being seen on the networks, and bring together all of the resources to determine what is happening so that we can be ahead of the adversary. We also have to do a better job defending our networks. It's too easy for the adversaries to do what they're setting out to do. So as we look to the next administration, as we look to the Biden administration, there has to be an investment in our defense as well as our offense. And it's not an either or. We have to work on those together. And clearly, what this has shown in a stark light is that we have to focus on supply chain security, understand how to make our supply chains more secure, more resilient, and bake security into our structure for the supply chains.